Good morning.
Hello, hello, how's everybody?
Good evening, everyone.
Am I the only one seeing green flashing screen?
No, I see it too. Good evening.
Good evening.
Green flashing screen.
Yeah, it's gone now, Mr. Dunbar, because you're gone.
Hold on, let me see what that is. Let me see. Let's see. See what the green flashing screen is. Let me see.
Yeah, it was doing some things.
Still doing it?
Not at this time.
It acts up again now. I think my camera is doing something funny. I reset my computer. I think it's just doing something funky over here. How's everybody?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Say that for a whole 2 months.
Hey man, you know, it is what it is. Oh, it's doing something funny again. Hold on. I think it might be. It seems like whenever I blow my camera up a little bit. Let me see. All right. So we'll see if it starts acting up. I'll switch out and do something different here. So Sharanda, you there?
I'm here. You green again.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is, Sharanda, you can go ahead and start with introductions and all that stuff. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna swap out to my phone and then swap back in. I think
Okay, you do it now.
huh?
Do it now.
Yeah, I think it's something glitchy in my. I probably just need to come out and come back in myself.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna come in with my phone and then in out here and then come back in while you start. All right, and we're on YouTube already as well, too, so we're good.
All right, it's Sharanda Ivy here from Byron, Georgia, 50K ring earner, CDLP certification trainer. We've earned the 1,000 personal app award. We've earned the field trainer of the year for 2021, 2020, 2019. We've earned it twice. We're in a new year now, so I'm getting hard to remember. But yeah, focused on business solutions and CDLP space as our major and our minor. Actually, last year we qualified for a Sapphire Elite versus Emerald Elite, but still helping individuals to hit their goals here in the CDLP space. I host the accountability call on Thursday nights, helping those individuals mastermind and be accountable for their sales in CDLP and small business, just focusing on this division of our company. And so I will be hosting the certification training along with our #1 producer for CDLP, which is our senior CDLP certification trainer, Mr. Alan Roman out of, I think Alan's out of Missouri. But I'll be hosting along with him on Saturday. So if you have team or you want to get a refresher, you definitely, we welcome you to get plugged into that. Normally, they close registration that afternoon around 3 or 4 Eastern time. So you want to make sure you get registered. It's no walk-ins. Every now and then that Saturday they'll have it open for a little while, but you definitely want to get registered on Friday. I'll say about 3 Central, 3 or 4 Central time for that. And so you need to be group certified as well if you want to open this up as a group benefit or give your owner operators a discount. You definitely want to make sure you go to the employee benefits training as well, so you'll be able to do that. So do we have you back, Dunbar? Yep, there you go. The Hulu. So while Mr. Dunbar is getting himself situated over there, I also be in Orlando this weekend for the One Team, One Dream event. Hosted down there. We have some of the platinums, which is the Amelia family, the Sardines. We'll have Don Thompson, and we'll also have Steve Williamson at that event in Orlando. So if you're in that area, I'll see some of you guys. I will actually be training from Orlando on Saturday for the CDLP training. I will be in Orlando doing that. So we're gonna get started here shortly. Mr. Dunbar, are you back with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, good. I'm not gonna cut my camera off because it's still doing something crazy, and I ain't got time to work it out right now. So I'm gonna talk. Can you hear me? You can hear me, right?
We can hear
Okay,
you
good.
good.
All right. So one of the things that I thought that would be a good idea to talk about today too. If you talk, Tremaine, are you talking to us? Okay, all right. I saw your mouth moving. I knew you was on mute. So what I wanted to talk about today is, as I was having a conversation with another associate about 2 hours ago, and we were talking about that process, which is the difference between opening up a regular group, because some people still don't understand totally that opening up a regular everyday group like a dentist office or some corporate office with 50 employees or whatever you may go after is a different process on how you do that. And sometimes people who are wanting to do CDLP, whether it be part-time or moving into that space full-time, what they're doing is they're sitting in business solutions, regular trainings, and hearing to go after the company owner or go after HR or go after these different people. And you have to understand that in the CDLP space, it's a different process. So the reason why we train on this call a little bit differently is because there's certainly a different process when it comes to going after the person who you should be talking to at a logistics company versus going after a person who is running a company in the HR space because you're looking to do an employee benefit or you're looking to do payroll deduction with that company. So everybody put a 1 in the chat if you know that there's a difference, because I don't always know everybody that's on here. I know some of you all are opening groups in both sides, so you guys understand that, and some of you all don't. So it's not that Business Solutions is teaching you the wrong way, because that's certainly not what that is. But they're not, when you go to a Business Solutions training, they're telling you how to open up a traditional group. They're not telling you how to open up a logistics company. So Lamar Reynolds, who has the famous entry line of who handles your citations and violations for this company. The reason why that's the opening line on the CDLP space is because you are not looking for the HR rep. You're not looking for the company owner per se, unless they handle that too. Does that make sense? Now, sometimes the logistics company owner, especially if you're going after smaller companies like what we talk about here, they wear different hats. So that person may be the safety manager and the owner and handle citations and violations. They may do all those things. And if that's the case, that is why you would ask for that person in that circumstance who handles the citation and violations, and that might make the owner may say, oh, I handle all of those things. Well, now you know you have the right person. Unless you're trying to open up a payroll deduction group with a logistics, and that depends on who you ask whether that's a good idea or bad. I like bank draft when it comes to trucking because truck drivers rotate a lot. So we talk about bank draft here, but you can certainly open up a payroll deduction logistics company. If you're looking to do that, then you're probably going to have to go through payroll at some point. Just understand, and some of you have already experienced this, $6.91 a pay period is a lot of money for an HR rep. They're thinking that that's an expensive benefit because they don't understand totally why the truckers having it will keep the company from going out of business. Put a 2 in the chat if that makes sense. And this is important for us to understand from the sales side of things, from the side that we're on, because what we're doing is we're offering a specific service and we have to know our target audience. And if Norman Amos or Jeree Clement or Daryl Stanley works for a dentist office or a doctor office or any other traditional business, and they do something wrong in that business, that probably won't cause the company to fold. Is that fair to say? Their insurance probably isn't going to go up because they did something wrong. And it probably won't affect that company for the next 2 years. We're in a logistics space that we're in. If Anthony Norris is renting a car in California on vacation with his family and he runs a red light, that essentially will affect the insurance rates for the company that he drives for. So it's important that the drivers have the membership, because it really does save the company money, headache, and unnecessary audits on the CDL side. Well, the employee doesn't have that power in a regular traditional business side. So understand that the HR rep does not understand that $6.91 a pay period is keeping that logistics company from folding unless that HR rep does safety and HR and the owner of the company. Then they put all that together. But if not, if it's just a regular HR rep, they probably don't understand that that $6.91 a pay period is very important for that company. So when you ask for a HR rep at a logistics company, that's kind of what you're faced with. So who handles the citations and violations become very important when it comes to the logistics space. So I want you guys to separate that, because I know sometimes we multitask and sometimes we say, well, I'm going to take this business solutions training because I'm doing CDLP and I want to be able to apply. Well, everything's not going to apply. With us, key in CDL logistics is researching the company, right? To make sure we understand their safety situation. When a regular traditional group is being opened up, you are looking at the company so you can see what they do, so that you can have a reasonable conversation with that HR rep. But really what you're proposing when you go do that presentation for that HR rep, that decision maker appointment, you're letting them know about why that benefit will help those employees have a better state of mind, pay attention to their work. All of those traditional employee benefits enrollment tactics is what you're using when you're opening up the legal and identity theft inside of a company. Put a 3 in the chat if that makes sense, right? With logistics, no, that's not the angle we're shooting for. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter. What I am saying is what matters more is that that company wants to make sure that they're not getting unnecessary audits. They want to make sure that their insurance rates aren't going through the roof. And how do they do that? By making sure that a transportation attorney that knows what they're doing can go to that courtroom and possibly get it thrown out, possibly get it reduced so that it can be data queued. That's a different angle. We have a different angle with logistics. And everybody needs to understand that if you're jumping back and forth. If you're jumping back and forth, you need to have a better understanding of that. The same way you need to know who you need to be speaking with if you're offering a small business plan to that logistics company. If you're going to talk to that logistics company about a small business plan, you need to know who to ask for. And unless it's a smaller company like that, what Sharanda talks about going into, then that person may not be wearing all the hats, because Sharanda may be going into a company where the owner is dealing with the safety issues and can make that decision because it's a smaller company. But if you're going into companies that are not that small, you may be asking for the person who handles citations and violations, and now you're changing that conversation, which we see here all the time. You're turning a regular conversation about violations and citations into a small business conversation, but you're talking to the safety manager of a company, they can't make a decision on buying a small business plan. So we've got to understand when we're prospecting how to increase our conversion rates by understanding who we're talking to, why we're talking to them, and what our goal is when we sit down and talk to that person. And again, this has been talked about in bits and pieces. Sharanda talks about this sparingly as she goes over her information, and I'm sure some of this is going on Thursday night. I'm not on that Thursday night accountability call, but I know Sharanda is talking to them about their prospect and how to prospect them. And if you're on those calls, you got to understand that you can't say the wrong, we say all the time, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and that's just not true. You can say the wrong thing to the right person. And there is a such thing as the wrong person. You could be talking to them. You got to know who the decision maker is if it's that situation. You got to know if the person is handling the safety, because sometimes the company owner isn't privy to all of that information. Not that they can't get to it, but they don't look at it. They're just running the company. And Sharanda will speak on this and has, and so has other the Wanda Bells and the other people on here that I know that work closely with field trainers and Sharanda and these other people who are out here talking to trucking companies. You know that there are company owners who don't even understand their own safety score. Because they're just running a business. They don't even realize that, hey, look, this is what's going to happen if this doesn't get dealt with. So we're educating that person, but we need to know who we're speaking to first. And we need to understand that when you go in and talk to these trucking companies, these logistics companies, how to lead based on their challenge and not to turn that conversation from citations and violations and what we can do to data queuing, to a small business plan, to offering a legal and identity theft plan to the employees all in one breath. And now you got a confused Sharanda, a confused Barbara Smith, a confused Anthony Norris. That's on the other end of that conversation because they don't know nothing about Legal Shield. They just know you're in their office because you got in by saying that you wanted to speak to somebody that handles citations and violations for their company. Does that make sense? So we've got to understand and have a system set up when we're going in. Even if we're caught off guard, you've got to know what the plan is. Consuela's got to know when she's calling these 10 companies, what she plans on saying and who she's looking for. You can't randomly call and just be like, well, if I get somebody, I'm just going to talk. Because that can sometimes work, because you can throw things against the wall, sometimes they'll stick. But that's not a good way to go about business so that you can increase your conversion rate. You've got to know who you're looking for, and you got to be willing to say when that person is not available, hey, I'll call back. Because some of us, when we get somebody on the phone, we're going to strangle that person. It don't matter who it is. We'll get somebody on the phone and they'll be like, well, I don't really handle that well. And then you start asking more questions and talking and trying to force a conversation to the wrong person because you've made 20 calls today and it's the first person you spoke to. So now they're about to get something. You talking to them about a family plan and right, getting it outside. And I get it. I understand who want to sell, but you got to understand that you got to keep yourself structured. And when you turn a logistics sales call into me selling you a family plan outside of you even being a part of this company, because I just want to try to get a sale in, people smell those commissions on your breath. Yes, put a 5 in the chat, right? And they can kind of tell that at this point, you just calling to sell somebody something. Versus you calling to really help the company. Because if I'm not the right person, that means you need to get off the phone with me so you can talk to the right person so that you can actually help the company. Not keep talking and sell me something because you're looking to make a commission. So I want us to keep that all in perspective going into this new year because we multitasking. A lot of us, we're multitasking and we got a list of calls and we thinking like one of these products we're going to sell them. They're going to buy this gun owner. They're going to do something. Some of y'all trying to sell add-ons. They don't even got a regular plan yet. We just selling, right? So I felt like this conversation needed back because it's just a lot of people who are willing to make the call, but what happens is if your conversion rate doesn't take place, meaning if you keep making a lot of calls and not closing anybody, it discourages you from making calls. And if you've made a decision that you're gonna make calls, that's half the battle right there. We don't want you to lose that courage because you're making bad calls. We want you to keep making calls, but you need to be able to convert people. So you need to know what to say to who, and you need to know when you're talking to the wrong person and just call back. If that's fair. Sharanda? I'm sure you got some.
No, that was well, that's it's a good topic. Definitely. CDLP is you have to remember it is it's a different language over here. Employee benefits training, they talk about the basics for us to know, but you have to know that it's different. That's why we have to be certified to promote it. So it is a big deal. It's a big difference, I'll say. You're right. If you're dealing with a smaller company, you're not going to find an HR person. But it all goes back to Dunbar. That's why Legal Shield has these systems in place. That's why we have a field trainer program, so you can connect with the field trainer. And if you don't know how to do that, I mean, what hurts my heart is when people text you a question, and the question can go 1,000 different ways, because after that question is going to come another question. And instead of doing it the right way by connecting with you or me or anybody, somebody that's focused in this space, starting with the trainers, and then those individuals who are really producing in this space. It's a lot of people producing in this space. Connecting with those people, because it is a different conversation. I had I had an owner tonight. One of my clients called me, and he was like, "Hey, Sharanda, I had a quick question right quick. I had a guy call me today and told me I had 20 violations. What are you talking about? You seen that?" And that's their conversation all day. They have no clue. A lot of them don't know. A lot of them don't even know about SAFER, but some of them know about SAFER, but they don't understand it. A lot of them haven't went into the FMCSA portal, because on the public side, we can see the violations, but we don't know which driver. If they ever sign into that portal, which most of them haven't, if they do that, they can see a lot of things. They can understand a lot of stuff that's going on. So, and like you say, it's a different language, even to the point when we're talking to drivers. I talk about this all the time. I remember telling a guy one time, because he had a headset on, I want to talk to you about your, I want to talk to you about your violations, because I help protect your CDLs. Well, he was driving a box truck, and he didn't have to have a CDL for that equipment that he was driving. So he was like, "I ain't got no CDLs. So where do I go from there?" So that's when you have to learn that it is a different language, even to the point when you're talking to the driver. You don't even have to be walking in the door. You can just be out and see somebody, maybe jump out of some type of equipment. It's all about the language. And, that's what we've learned. You hear the language changing. Melissa Wilder talks a lot about, her language, what she talks. It's she say what she say because she's said it a lot and she's mastered it. Like, if you've been on a call with me, with the decision maker, I don't talk like the normal associate would talk to an individual, because the language is different. And not that you got to know all about transportation, but you got to know that it's different over here. Like Dunbar said, you walking in asking for HR, you got the door closed in your face early, because they don't have that in a smaller company. Now, if you prospect in bigger companies with that HR person there, you definitely need someone to support you on that, some type of field trainer, or somebody who's able to have those conversations at those levels. So it is a big deal. And a lot of associates, number I used to say, they were prospecting or making dials, and the people said, "Oh, I can talk right now." And then they didn't know what to say. You always have to be prepared. Why, like you say, you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. So you just making dials just to make dials and hope nobody answer? Or you making dials to set an appointment or do whatever you're going to do. So you definitely have to have a plan. So all that matters. So you want to make sure that you understand the process, because this is a different division.
Yeah, no question about that. So something else that I wanted to do too was kind of ask people what they wanted to do for 2023, meaning like not what you want to do, but what you feel like you need help with. What do you feel like you need help with in 2023? And that's important, because I am the kind of trainer that wants to give people what they need, not have it already prepared when they come and say, "This is what you need," right? There's always the steps, the regular everyday steps that you need to take to process a thing. But there's also, what does that person need? Because Anthony may need something different than Barbara. Does that make sense to everybody? Sharanda may need something different than Daryl. So it depends on who needs what. So it's important for us to know when we're setting up different trainings on a Monday, what we should be going over based on what most people need when it comes to making calls and going in and closing this business, because it's closable. The product is worth them having. It's inexpensive. The challenge is it's not enough people making calls that convert. So what is the problem? Why aren't people converting with their phone calls? Are they saying the wrong thing? Are they using the wrong verbiage when they're doing that? What's happening?
A lot of them are suspects versus prospects. I mean, and you know, everybody can say everybody needs to plan. I get that. But if you don't have the skill to close that person, it ain't gonna work for you. So, and like you and you have to know, especially in this space, they feel what they've been doing has been working. You know, yeah, they may know their numbers are bad. They may know that their drivers got a lot of violations. But if they still can run their trucks and they're not shut down, they feel like that's working. Like that's just the way it is. You know, they think what we're doing is selling them versus helping them. But a lot of people, their prospects aren't really, they're not really at a point where they can close them. Like the Lamar script is a good, Lamar technique is a good technique, meaning the research. And if you talk to some associates long enough, you'll realize half of them aren't using the technique of research. Because if you research the client and realize who your ideal prospect is, and of all these trainings from the CDLP certification training to the Monday night training, even the small business stuff, the employee benefits training, all that goes into what we do in the company as a whole. You just, of course, it goes back to what you're saying. This is a little different. We just have to tweak it. But a lot of people are not using the technique, and it's hard to go in a company and be generic. Yeah, a lot of the trainers may not be doing that because they are skilled and versed in just the process itself. But if you're not versed in sales and the process of how to go into the market and show the value proposition, it'll be hard. But Lamar teaches the technique of research and who your ideal client is. And if you do that, they'll have, it'll be a better conversion rate. I believe that.
So let's ask this question, right? And we know the answer to it already, but we're gonna ask this for the participation of it. How many people are more comfortable talking to somebody when they know a little bit about them?
Absolutely.
Whether it be a company or an individual, right? It doesn't matter whether it's your next door neighbor or a company prospecting, right? How many people feel better having a conversation with a person or a company once they know a little bit about that person or that company? The answer is coming in, they're coming in, but they're coming in slow, like you're not sure.
Yeah. Art, Valerie, Consuela, Teresa, Barbara, Karen, yeah, they're coming in. Yeah.
And this is important because we know, going back to sales, because you know, and I talk about sales all the time because at the end of the day, that's all this is. You know, you can change the product, you can change the prospect, you can change the salesperson, you can change the pitch, you can change whatever you want to change. Sales is sales. And what your headspace is when you go into a sale changes whether you convert that client over from a prospect to a client, right? And what it says, it has to start with, it's a prospect. Now, it can't be a suspect. And what's clarifying it as a prospect is you did your research. And if you truly feel like, right, if Jaree truly feels like what she has is going to help that person, she is a little bit more motivated and excited about calling them because she saw a problem and she knows she has a solution. But when you are calling just to make calls, and there's no purpose other than you trying to qualify for something or make some extra money, if that's the only reason you're making the call, you can still close the deal, but it's a little bit more difficult. It's just a little bit more difficult. So you've got to, that research is really going to help you go into a space where you say, oh, now I understand what my prospect is going through. And I understand that me offering this service that I offer them is going to help them. Oh man, you know what? This makes a lot more sense. This is really affordable. And see, some of us, we sell more legal plans when we use the legal plan ourselves, because you get excited about selling it, because when you solve a problem and you pay 25, some of us still on a $17 membership that we paid for, right? We still holding on to that one. So if you're paying anywhere between $17 and $29 for your personal plan and you use it, you get excited every time you use it because you're like, you know what, this really is valuable. When you help companies, you see how valuable the membership is when a company calls you or a driver calls you and you save their hide. When a company calls you and you save that company's hide because they have the membership and you can answer questions and help that person out. You get excited about selling it again because there's a purpose. But you've got to do your research and understand what you're doing. And I know from my own personal experience, plus it was, for me, it was so fun watching Sharanda go from just, hey, what am I doing? What do I say when I call these people? To completely controlling the deal. Like I always say, always to a point to where at this point, I don't know how many years in it is now, Sharanda, where you and I deal with each other the way we do here, but I call her back and ask her questions now. It was the time when Sharanda will call me and be like, hey, Dunbar, what does this mean? Now I'm calling Sharanda like, Sharanda, I just talked to one of my companies, what does this mean? All because she made it a point to understand her craft, because it really does motivate you. And some of us, that's what we're missing with these phone calls. We aren't even motivated when we're making phone calls. Your motivation can be the blitz, but it really has got to do with your own personal business. I should not need to see 300 other people making phone calls to make calls to run a business that I own. I should be motivated because I sell a product that's beneficial to the person that I prospect or the company that I prospect. And I'm only going to get that feeling when I understand that there's a challenge. As a coach, I cannot coach a person that does not need to be coached. That's not fun to me. If Anthony Norris is one of my coaching clients and he knows everything I know, it's not fun getting on the Zoom with him to coach him if he knows everything already. If he got all the answers and he can do more for me than I can do for him, am I really able to coach him? I'm not looking forward to that because he's not going to benefit from that. But if I know the product that I offer is going to help that company, and that the owner of that company is dealing with some things that are solvable once they have our membership, then I'm saying, you know what? I'm motivated to make this call because I'm about to help a company stay afloat. I'm about to help this driver with that could possibly not be able to find somewhere to work to get in a good position because they've got a plan like this. And that's got to be the mission. So in the chat, if you guys don't mind, put in the chat some things that you feel like you need that are missing from your business, right, as it comes to CDLP, so that in 2023, because I go back and I look at these, I look at the chat. So these Zooms that I record, I literally go back into my Zooms and I look at what people are saying. I look at the chats, I look at those things. I have a time in my calendar where I do that. So I want you guys to do it because as we're building for 2023, we don't want to just be having conversations with you all about stuff that y'all don't care about. We want to talk to you guys about things that's going to help you close your conversion rate, that's going to have you motivated when it goes to making phone calls, because we have to be doing more than a blitz on Tuesday. Essentially, if you're doing Legal Shield like full time, you should be blitzing every day. You should be doing 2 hours of calls every day unless you're in the field, and that's why you're not. If you're calling yourself working, doing this, building this up to take over your 9 to 5, you certainly should not just be making calls on Tuesday. Follow up. I see Anthony Norris, follow up. I see field trainer, Cynthia Ware. And I already know we're gonna talk about field trainer stuff, so y'all already know y'all gonna get plenty of field trainer conversation, setting the appointment, Queen Bee, Barbara Smith, doing the proper research, all good stuff. Yeah, those are all things that definitely are part of the conversion rate. I need to follow up quicker and make more phone calls. Aretha, good stuff. And what y'all not gonna believe is most of this stuff that we seeing go up the board, most of it outside of like field training and things like that, it's really just as simple as you putting it on your calendar to do it. So if you're not making enough calls, just put more calls on your calendar. If you're not following up fast enough, put it on your calendar to follow up fast enough, right? And remember too, like with following up fast enough, there isn't a preset on follow-up. Write that down. There's not a preset on following up. You're following up differently based on who you call. Now, when you call somebody and don't get an answer, there's a preset to that follow-up because you have a system that you call people back. But if you call them and they're not ready yet, how do you follow up properly? You ask them when is a good time to follow up. That's how you do that. They'll say, hey, man, it's not a good time. I heard your voicemail before about this, and right now I'm just not in this place I want to talk about that. Hey, look, what I'm going to talk to you about is going to really help, but I understand your time is important. When is it a good time for me to give you a call back where you can really concentrate on what I'm saying to you for about 10 or 15 minutes? Call me back on Friday, that's a light day. That's your follow-up. So at this point, we don't need to know how often to follow up, because we're going to let our prospect let us know when to follow up. And guess what the great thing about that is? Now, when you call back, you don't have to feel like a pest, because I can say, hey, Dale, this is Robert Dunbar of Oceanside Benefits Group. I'm giving you a call back. The last conversation, you suggested that I call you Friday at 3 o'clock. Now I'm at ease making that call because you asked me to call you back at this time. This was more convenient time. Now that person doesn't feel like you're bothering them, right? And I'm just looking at some of these go across the screen, and I'm speaking to some of them. And Sharanda, you can jump in whenever I see you unmuted, but jump in whenever you want to jump in. Making more phone calls, guys, that's calendar stuff. That's just simply about blocking the time in your calendar to make those calls and making those calls. It's all mind. It's all mindset. Just putting it on your calendar and saying, I need to make these calls. And if your problem is motivation, what's going to motivate you to make those calls? Right? So here's the hurtful part of that conversation. If you cannot find any motivation to call logistics companies, then you probably shouldn't be calling logistics companies. Does that make sense? If you cannot find the motivation to call them, then maybe that's not who you should be calling. Because the reason why I have to ask Sharanda questions now instead of her asking me questions is because she enjoys the space of logistics. So she started doing things in that space to learn more because she really had a passion for that space. Don't do CDLP because that's all that's left. Some of y'all, like, I did networking, I did group, I did this, I did that. Ain't nothing left but CDLP. Let me see if that's going to work. And that's not going to motivate you. And I don't mean to bust your bubble, but I mean, the sooner you know, the better. If you are not excited about being able to call these companies, then you probably need to be calling on somebody else or do some research, which will motivate you. Because you may be calling because you don't know what to say. You don't have nothing to say. You don't see a problem. You don't, right? So you're saying, well, what am I really going to say? Like Sharanda said a minute ago, somebody calls and said, they answered the phone and I didn't know what to say. You can't make a phone call and not know what you're going to say when they answer, because that would only mean that you didn't expect anybody to answer. So you got to have a preset of, what do I say when somebody answers? What do I say when I get the wrong person? What do I say when they say call back? What do I say when they say I don't need your services? I had that before. I used it before. It doesn't work. My brother sells it. Right? Whatever they say, you have to have a preset for that, and it needs to be a low emotional preset, meaning that you're not getting all up in your all up in your feelings because somebody said something about Legal Shield or PPLSI that you didn't like. You got to know that when they say it, they're speaking from a place of maybe a bad experience. So I always say, I'm so sorry I'm so sorry to hear you had a bad experience. Just know you can always call anybody in Legal Shield if you have an issue and you can't get your representative online. Anybody from the company can help you with the scenario. They don't care who the rep is that helps you. Anybody can help you. Is this something I can do about the bad experience you had? Do you still have the membership from that bad experience? Most of the time it's no. Are you willing to give me a chance to get you enrolled again so you can have a better experience with me? We got to learn to say that kind of stuff because that's sales. And sometimes people just want to hear. You ever been really upset, really mad when you call the company and everybody keep pushing you off, and then one person get on the phone and they listen to you, and then they're like, well, what do you want to do? And you don't even have So now somebody finally said, what can I do to help? And you like, yeah. I just wanted somebody to know I was pissed off. Because that's what it turns into. You just want somebody to hear you out. Understand that I feel like I've been wronged and tell me that you apologize for my experience and that you're willing to help me. I really don't need you to do nothing at this point. I just need to know that you know I was feeling some type of way about this. And that's where we've got to be. We've got to understand that we are not just PPLSI independent associates, but we are business owners that are building a book of business that is planning on paying us forever. So we have to make sure that we understand how to sell it so that they keep it. Right? Good stuff, George. Overcoming objections, cross-selling, improving closing ratio. That's good stuff. And we're going to do some more of that this year. We're going to do more of that this year than we did last year, which is improving that closing ratio, because that helps PPLSI, that helps you, that helps your residual income, right? Those are all positive things if you can improve that closing ratio, because we want the people who are making calls to make better calls and close more deals. And stop setting somebody up who calls better to close the deal that you started. Right? Because you made the call, you said a couple of things, you piqued their attention, and then you couldn't close the deal with somebody else that's more experienced. They make one phone call and close that deal that you started because they know a little bit more about sales than you do, a little bit more about the product than you do, and they're a little bit more patient than you are. Right? Is that fair? Sharon, anything?
No, let me see. Some of this is better follow-ups. Rose said better follow-ups, owners really busy. Yeah, so you have to know that in this space, especially if you're prospecting small companies, because the owner is wearing a lot of hats. So the owner may still be driving. They may, be on the road a lot. In the morning, drivers and companies are, they're trying to get the trucks moving. So they may not be available. That might not be the best time to talk to them. And like Rose said, you really have to be patient, but being patient meaning you have to keep the funnel full and you have to do follow-ups more often, because if you're doing a great job of calling, like you said, I think Barry just said this, somebody else can come in the moment you stop following up and close that person. I think Stephanie Bob talked about this on the accountability call about a month ago. She had been following up and followed up on somebody and somebody else had closed them. So it's like a knife wound to you, because you've been you've been connecting with them, but just not at the right time. Unfortunately. I know he's getting ready to jump off, but Bob, one thing he taught me, and I think Dunbar, you talked about this over the years. A lot of times, for a long time, I wouldn't send anything, no emails or nothing, until I got him on the phone. And you can miss out like that, because you can be leaving messages and they probably will hear that, but if you're not constantly in their face, whether it's an email or text or something, they forget you. And we all look alike because they never really communicated with us, right? So they think we're all working together when we're not. And that can be hurtful too, because some people can come in and close that deal for you thinking we all work together.
Mm.
So I've learned to, if I call and the voicemail is full or whatever, I'm going to somehow connect through text or email or something. And I'm going to continue to do that as often as I can remember. Because, yeah, because as some of us may not be sharks, there's some sharks out there, you know.
And that's something else that we didn't do a lot of last year, Sharenda, that I think that's a really good topic for us to spend some time on. I think a little bit more this year is because we're doing business, because this is B2B, right? And for those that don't know what B2B means, business to business, right? I send a lot of emails, and some of y'all know that because y'all on the end of that list, right? Y'all on that list and y'all get those emails. And if you're not sending too many emails, you're not doing your job as a person that's sending out emails. So understand that. There are going to be some people that's going to unsubscribe, that's going to say you send me too many emails, but that's going to increase your closing rate. So understand that when it comes to selling, sometimes you have to get to people because everybody's trying to get to them. So something that Sharenda just said about sending things out. 80% education, 20% sales. Always remember that. Always apply the 80-20 rule to things. And in this circumstance, the 80-20 rule is 80% education, 20% sales. Let me tell you something that you guys can do, a quick tip. And it's a quick tip verbally, but it's a little bit of work you're gonna have to do it. You all will increase your sales in 2023 if you start understanding that using email campaigns to send out regular emails that educate the people that you're prospecting will get you more sales. Because they will be getting emails from you that talk about changes in the industry, that talk about violations changing and what you should be looking out for and different things that you send out to those companies, right? When you send those emails out, they're constantly seeing you in their face. So when something happens that is solvable by your product, you're fresh on their mind. And you're reminding them that they need you because they keep seeing your email. And you all know this from personal experience. How many times have you bought something through your email that at some point before you bought it, you was like, this joker getting on my nerves? And then eventually you buy because when they was getting on your nerves, you just wasn't in the headspace to buy them. You got tired of seeing their emails. And then you buy because you actually need it at some point. But by the time you realize you needed it, right, you had already cussed them out in your head. You didn't go off on them, but you said it to yourself that they're getting on your nerves. But you ended up buying from them because it was something that you needed. It just was bad timing. It's the same thing that'll happen with your emails. You gotta spend some time saying, right, automation. So anybody who joined me for our BATS program, we did Business Autopilot Summit, we talked about automating your business. Some of us are making 20, 30 calls a day when you wouldn't have to work that hard if you would just set up for emails to go out every day. Because those are touches. Those are touches. So when they're getting those emails, even though they may not buy when they get the email, it touched them. They saw the email. It reminded them of you. And you're now at the top of mind, even if it's only for a few minutes. And then if somebody walked in the office and said, oh, I got this violation, or they get a call about being audited, or somebody shows up at the door, guess what they're thinking? They just got an email from you yesterday. Let me call Sharenda and see whether or not she can help with this. I see you trying to unmute, so I'm trying to wait for you.
Yeah, so it's some of people that get on the mastermind, some of them, and a lot of people I work with, I'll say that, I say that. A lot of people that I work with have come up with a system with emails, and they find success with that. And because one thing we know is that whether they ignore it or not, violations scares them. The word audit scares them. And so they have learned techniques where they scare them. And they do it through email. And a lot of them have, I give a shout out, I think she's on here, Teresa West. She opened up 2 new groups last month.
Congrats.
Using that system of emails, but it's more of a scare tactic, because what Jed Blunt teaches you in fanatical prospecting, if that subject line isn't appealing, they're not going to open it. And so they've started to master their wording in that subject line, and they're getting people attention. They make the dials, they send the email, and they have people calling them back. So yeah, you're right, Dunbar. That the emails are, I would say that's one thing I definitely am adding to my business this year, more emails for sure. But yeah, so a lot of them are definitely having some success, definitely with those emails. And I know Teresa opened 2 groups just by continuing to follow up. Phone call, the email, the phone call, the email, and they were calling her back. And so she opened up 2 groups back to back last month. And I know one to open up one today. I think it was a process of following up and emails and things like that. So you're right, that works.
Yeah, so Sharanda too, something else that helps with that too for you guys, so that you guys understand that when we talk about it. And like I said, these are things we're having these conversations because these are things that we will improve in 2023 and bring into this platform so that you guys can get the information here. We're not telling you to go get it on your own. The split testing on subject lines is really important. Even though marketing is a big thing, but you have to learn how to get people's attention so that they open it up. And we happen to be in an industry where it's very easy to scare people with subject lines. Because this is an industry where they can be shut down because of an audit. They can be shut down because drivers are getting violations. There's always information that comes out that says DOT is doing this, FMCSA is doing this, truck drivers have to be aware of this. There's so many things going on out there with CDL and that logistics industry that it's easy to put together some really good tactical lines, subject lines. And guess what else happens? You are now prospecting when you send out so many emails at a time of day when you're not actually prospecting. When you make phone calls, you're making phone calls. If you make phone calls from 9 to 11, whoever you call, if you don't get them, you didn't get them. Guess what happens sometimes? I wake up in the morning at 7 o'clock in the morning and I've sold 2 things that somebody bought from me at 1 o'clock in the morning when they was going through their email, saw something and was like, oh, I didn't see this until just now. And then they buy it. So people are looking at their email when they look at it. So when you're sending out emails and calling, we're not saying don't call, we're saying email in addition. Now you have got your touches going on whenever that person opens that particular email, when they don't have all the other distractions. So what happens when Daryl Stanley opens up an email at 11 o'clock at night, when he's in his sitting room with his laptop on his lap, and he can actually read through your email and say, you know, I got to call this guy tomorrow morning because I'm having this issue with my company right now. Now he makes it his business to call me the next morning because he's looked at that email when all the noise is gone. Well, guess what? I can't call Daryl at 11 o'clock at night when all the noise is gone. But he can open up an email at that time that I sent at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So email marketing is a proven tactic. But something that Sharanda said just a minute ago, you got to do some split testing and learn. They've got entire trainings on how to put together email subject lines that get open. But it's worth learning to do it, because if you want your business to explode, we are selling to businesses. We're not selling to people. Most of the time, we're selling to businesses because we're doing B2B. And if you don't think that learning how to email market will expand your business, then you sadly mistaken. Because the days of picking up the phone and dialing is just not as effective. So the other day, somebody knocked on my door. And I ain't had this happen in so long, I can't remember. The guy knocked on my door. It was the funniest thing in the world. I opened the door. It was a guy standing at the door. He handed me a canister of Lysol wipes. And I said, what are these for? He said, we're offering these Lysol wipes to anybody that let us do a presentation. I said, a presentation on what? He says, our home cleaner. They had a home cleaning system. They were going door to door selling this product. Door to door.
Yeah.
I told this guy, I said, well, what is it? As soon as I said, what is it? A guy jumped out the back of the little Sprinter van with a backpack on with the entire product in the backpack. I said, how long is this going to take? He said, as long as it needs to. I said, I don't have that kind of time. I'm on Zoom right now. Now listen to my point. You cannot just pick up the phone and dial people. You have to be in their business. You have to be in their face because there's too many people looking for business from the same people. You gotta be in their face at different times. And if the only time that you are prospecting is when you're dialing somebody's number, then you're missing an opportunity to increase your closing rate. You have got to, without a doubt, be able to reach them at a time that is convenient for them. And how do you get in their space when it's convenient for them? By sending them the email that they're gonna open up when it's convenient for them. Sharanda?
No, I'm just saying, man, I would have been stuck with, like, how many dollars you don't know? They couldn't show me no presentation because I'm gonna be stuck on, I don't know how many dollars I'm not on in my subdivision. If how many people asked me that you did that, like, is that painful? Like, I'm like, you got some skills, man. You need to find out your gift so you can use these skills.
Hey, man, before I told him no, he was already through the front door and opening and unzipping his little pack. That's how fast he was moving. I mean, he was fast. I had to shut him down. He was literally about to open up his little thing on my floor, and he gonna set up and start cleaning my house.
Yeah, he got a gift. He need to use
But I respected the game.
right.
Right? They're knocking on the door to come get that big. So I'm all about sales. So I completely respected it. I wasn't upset at all. I respected it. But you have to be able to, you got to get in people's face. Because if you don't get in their face, they won't let you help them because somebody else is in their face. And the problem is somebody probably selling them something they don't need. You're selling them something that they need. And you've got to be a constant for them. A constant. So those emails going out along with those phone calls has got to be there. When you get really heavy in the sales, then you start pulling them into groups on Facebook where you're putting things in a group that they're a part of as well. You got to prospect people 360. It's got to be 360, guys. It's got to be 360. And if it's not, you're going to slow down your growth in your business, and the business industry is going to move with or without you. So we've got to know that we got to step our game up and move with the cheese when it comes to this kind of stuff. Email marketing is where it's at. It was already going in that direction, and the pandemic made it go faster. People are spending thousands of dollars a month on email campaigns and letting those things run, and they're sending out hundreds of thousands of emails a month to close 10 or 20 people. And if all you closing is 10 or 20 people and you got a $2,000 product, you're making a good living. So if you spend $500 a month to close 2 small business plans a week because of the email campaigns you were sending out, would it or would it not be worth that $600, $700, $800 that you were getting on those 2 plans a week? Because of the email campaigns that were going out, people are selling through email.
Another thing, Dunbar, too, is what I found is with a lot of associates that I work with, and it's not bad. It's bad in a sense because they're not closing as many people. They're busy educating off the information that they've learned. But can you only imagine, right? Because I know this is my tactic. Will be my tactic. can you imagine having that conversation with the individual and then you start dropping those emails? Because, and then it could be followed up with a text, hey Dunbar, I know we talked the other day, I sent you an email about, the information I was talking about on the phone. Check your email. I sent it last night or I sent it yesterday. And if they get that, those people, one thing I know when you make calls, and that's definitely what I'm getting back to is making dials. When you make calls and you just have a good conversation, not really have to throw up on people, but have some dialogue with them and they kind of start to think, oh, you might know a little bit. And then you follow that up with some type of email or text, and you continue to do that with that. I have gotten clients that way, maybe talking today. And I think about a guy, I cold call. I think I talked about this on here. If I didn't, I did it on a mastermind call. I cold called on the Blitz one Tuesday in February with a company that the man literally ate me up. I mean, like, he was so hard on me, but I never broke. I still was nice. I still didn't come across ugly. I still was trying to help. I just was saying, sir, I'm just really trying to help. I see your numbers. And he was just overwhelmed because he got so much solicitation. But he was so ugly to me, like so ugly. But then he backed away. Like he calmed down. And he asked me, can you please email my son so we can have your information? And they reached out to me in October because they were getting audited. But I made an impression on him. And I emailed his son, like he said. The son emailed me back, told me he got it. His daddy had told him that we had conversated. But I emailed him a couple of times throughout the summer, just saying, hey, just checking in on y'all. Hope everything is well. And then October, I got an email telling me that they was coming up for an audit. So I say that to say the people that are giving these great education pieces or dropping gems to these owners who are listening and you're dialoguing, follow up with a text or an email, every now and again. And if you not put Legal Shield in that, because what the problem is with a lot of people, if they talk to somebody today and they start to have dialogue, the next call they're going to start with just pounding them with Legal Shield. Y'all need this. Yeah, don't do that. Because eventually they're going to ask you, well, how can you help? Because they done had that dialogue with you several times. So.
And we've talked about this during, years with doing this call. And we're going to continue that in 2023 with that. You've got to identify yourself. I don't know how many PPLSI reps are out there actively working the business because I don't keep up with that number, but it's enough of them that you're not separating yourself by saying you're PPLSI. You guys need to be operating as a business within PPLSI so that you can, when you send emails, they have your branding. Because you're giving them knowledge at this point. When it's 80% knowledge, 20% sales, the 80% knowledge is not coming from Legal Shield. Legal Shield is not giving you anything to send them. You're sending them an email with information that you created as an independent associate who is trying to get that business. So if I'm sending them the statistics from the last check that they had where people got violated, I'm not sending that from PPLSI because it didn't come from PPLSI. I'm not sending that with a PPLSI signature, not me. I'm sending that with my company name that I'm in Legal Shield with. I'm in Legal Shield. Well, I've got 2 agreements. So I'm in there with Oceanside Benefits and Living Legacy Benefits Group. So whichever one I'm prospecting through at the time, that's going to have information saying, hey, did you know, 37% of trucking companies were out of service during the last check? Right? This is how you prevent this from you being in that percentage, blah, 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 blah. That's information. I didn't get that from PPLSI. I got that from doing my own research. So the bottom of that email is not going to have PPLSI. It's going to say my company, because when I'm sending those kind of emails on a regular basis to educate that client, I don't want that client to end up running into somebody else from PPLSI and then them closing the deal based on all of my work. I want them to be like, hey, we got to call that guy from Oceanside Benefits. He's been talking to us about all of these violations and what we can do to help. You guys follow that? If you say PPLSI, it might be easier for them to just contact PPLSI, which means they're going to end up with whatever agent is in that area that does what that legal shield sends them to. You've got to be able to differentiate yourself by saying, this is me, this is my company, and this is what I offer. It doesn't matter that the product you're offering is a PPLSI product, you're still offering it through your company. You guys follow that? An independent insurance agent can sell Medicare, can sell Aflac, can sell whatever insurance product they sell. They don't create their own, they sell somebody else's insurance product, but it's still their insurance company. This is your benefit company. You are selling Legal Shield PPLSI products through your company, so market yourself as such, so that you can stand out and they'll know that this information that they're getting that's helping their trucking company is coming from you, not coming from PPLSI. And essentially, it's really not, because PPLSI doesn't give us anything to send out on a regular basis that's helpful to trucking companies. So you're probably creating that email yourself anyway. So you should be doing it under your particular brand. And I saw on YouTube, we had teamwork, understanding that it's true to win, following up appropriately, keeping a better log, keeping our CRMs updated to follow up properly. Those are other things that people are saying that they want to get better at. And those are things that we should be getting better at when it comes to those type of things. So it is 9:47. I'm gonna turn it over to Sharon. If you got anything else before we close out? Good.
That's good. I think that's what a lot of people get overtrained. So I think that's enough.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So remember January 14th, Sharanda Ivy, Alan Roman certification training. If you need a refresher, go ahead and jump on that. Sharanda's Thursday night accountability call will be happening this Thursday.
Time changed for that. We are actually doing that at 8 o'clock on Thursday night. So show up at 9:30. You'll be sitting there solo dolo.
8 p.m. new time for the accountability call, Thursday at 8 p.m. So make sure you plugged in to that as well. Of course, we'll be back here next Monday. The Blitz is tomorrow, so make sure you prepare for that as well. And for those that's been joining us on Tuesday nights for the Stop Procrastinating for 2023, that's a free training that we're doing just to help people not procrastinate. We got our last session tomorrow night. We'll be talking about how to create a sense of urgency in your business and in your life, not just your business. So, if it's a life procrastination thing there as well. So life and business, Stop Procrastinating now in 2023. So we'll be meeting tomorrow night as well. So if anybody wants to join that, you guys can join us on that. Again, it's no cost. It's just a training that Harold Branch and myself are doing. Was doing for 3 weeks and going into the new year. So get plugged in with that. If you have any questions about that, just email me or whatever, text me, and I'll send you the link to register. I know a lot of you guys are already registered, so you'll get a reminder email tomorrow about the training. So that being said, guys, we're gonna go ahead and close out. Thank you guys on YouTube for joining us. Thank you guys on Zoom for joining us, and we'll be here again next week. You guys have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night, all.
Good night.
Aloha.